Alright, so we're gonna continue our series of React and we're gonna learn React from the scratch. Now we will be at the third part. So, so for building, so basically you have some designer, we're working with some designer, right? And they give you a design that, okay, this is something that I want to build, right? So to build a user interface with React, you first need to understand what each component does, right? And how the data will be stitched across components, right? So to manage your application, you need to think about what is the state of the application that it needs to know about, and what all the different components needs to be in the application that needs to uh, basically render the entire page. So in that direction you can think, and you can develop apps, web apps, using that sort of uh, um, thinking in mind. So in this tutorial, we'll see the React guide has given us a thought process of building a data table in which you can search products. Okay, so suppose we have a API of JSON, and then all of this data is something like we have a category, we have a price, we have whether it's in stock, and what is the name of the product. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna build a UI like this, which is a very simple UI. So there are some steps we'll be doing. So first we'll create this input, then we'll create this checkbox, then this data table, and this data table will have two categories. One is fruits and another is vegetables. And then for every fruit we'll show red, uh, and for the ones which are not in stock we'll show red, right? For example, passion fruit is not in stock, so we'll show it as red. Okay, this is gonna be interesting how to implement something like this. So first thing we'll do is we'll basically understand what is the component hierarchy of this design. Okay, so this is a very uh, simple task to do. So first thing is that this is my viewport layout, right? And then it has a input box, then a checkbox, then a data table. And data table has two parts. One is for fruits and other is for vegetables. And in data table we show name and price. Okay, so we'll basically think about different ways in which we can understand this component. So first is like uh, programming, right? So we have to see that if our component is doing more than one things, then it is not ideal to have that component do bunch of things. So we should split our components in some granular design that every functional component has some concern that it manages. Okay, so it doesn't have too many concerns it's managing. Okay, so ideally it should have only one thing to do, right? But so, and then CSS is uh, basically how, based on CSS, how we will basically organize your components. And other thing is that you can basically organize your component with the design layers. So so it basically depends upon what data you are dealing with and how do you want to render that data. So basically this is your information architecture, right? So uh, we will separate our components into different UIs. So first is search bar. Okay, so first is the entire table. Then we have a search bar, then we have a product table, and we have a category row, and then we have a product row. Okay, so so this is how we are designing our component into designing our page into different components. Okay, so this is how we basically build a static version in React. Okay, so the first approach is to build a version that renders UI from your data model without any interactivity. Okay, because the first thing is to build a static version. Okay, so you have to type a lot. Okay, but interactivity uh, requires a lot of thinking. So uh, first we'll basically build components, and we will reuse components and use props and state in this. Okay, so in the static version we'll just work with props. Okay, because state is only for interactivity, because that state data changes over time. Uh, so this is very crucial to understand that. So let's just start from there are two ways to start. Either we can start from the top level or we can start from the bottom level. Okay. So in simpler ways, the thing is that we can go top down in simpler examples because they have less components. But in larger projects, we have to go bottom up always, because we have to first figure out which pieces are the ones which are having, because they are easily manageable. Like the smaller components are easily manageable, and then we can combine them together to build larger components, right? So let's just see. First is our product category row. So in this, basically you have a TR and a TH with the category, and it spans over two columns. Okay. Then we have a product row. So in the product row, what we'll do is we'll just say that, okay, if the product uh, is stocked, then we'll just show its name. Otherwise, we will show a span with the color of red. And then we'll just show this name markup. And then otherwise, we'll show the product price. Okay. And in the second row, and then we have a product table. So in the product table, what we'll do is we'll map over the products, and we'll say that if the product category is not the last category, then we'll push the category row with the product category, right? And otherwise we'll push a product row. uh, Also, we'll set the last category as the product category. Okay. So every time our category changes, right, we will just create a new entry for the category row. This is the time where a category changes. It's not the same as the previous category, so we'll just push a category row. Otherwise, usually we'll push a product row. Okay. So we'll render the name and price, and then we'll push the rows. Then we have a search bar. Search bar is simpler. So you just create a form tag and with an input and a label, right? We provide a checkbox, and we'll say only show the products in stock. Then we have a product table. So in the product table, we will just show the search bar first, and then we'll show the product table. Okay. And then we have a set of hard-coded JSON for the products, in which every product has a category, price, whether it's stock or in stock or out of stock, and then the name of the product. So in our application, we will render the filterable products table. So now we have our static markup ready. Okay. So we have our static markup ready. So once we have built our components, we have reusable components which render our data, right? Since this is a static application, we only have JSX, and whatever data model we are using, that will be at the top level, and we'll pass it as a prop. So this is a this is a data flow of one top level data flow, which is going from the top to bottom. This is one way data flow, and the bottom one's components are taking the data from the top level component. Okay. Now the next thing we have to do is we have to understand what is the UI state to make it interactive, because we want to let the users change the data model, right? So for this we use a state. So this is state is basically the minimum amount of data that we needs to work with, which our app needs to know, right? So the most important principle for our state is that we have to make it dry. In that, we don't need to basically reuse. We can reuse our state as much as possible, and we don't need to create too many states for the application, because if we have too many states, then our application will become lagging in performance, right? So say we have a number of items that we want to render. Then basically we can derive a lot of things from the current data model, right? For example, if we want to see what are the in stock items, we don't need to create another state for it. or if we want to know what are the number of items in our cart, then we don't need to uh, create another state model for it. We can just use the existing state and derive that those values from that current state, right? So we just need to identify which is the state of my application, and then based on that uh, uh, we can basically make so there are a few check marks that we can think about. So if there is something that we can compute based on existing data of our component, then it is not a state. And if it is something that is passed from the parent, then it is not a state. And if it is constant over time, if it doesn't change, if it is something hard coded, or if it is some mapping that we don't need over time, then we can then it is not state. But then state is something that changes over time. For example, in our input box, we type something on the text box, right? That is cannot be derived from anything else. So whatever is the value that user enters, that is state, right? And the value of checkbox in our application, that is also a state because it changes over time. And then this means that in our application, only the search text and the value of checkbox are state, right? So we basically understand that React has two models. One is props, and other is state. So props is basically that you provide to the functional components. So basically parent component lets the child component know that this is the data you need to work with to be able to render your UI and control the appearance of the UI. State is basically something that the application can keep track of, and that information changes over time as the user does something with your application, right? Make some actions with your application. So yes, they two are different, but we can combine them together to basically make dynamic UIs. Okay, so uh, now once we have identified state in our application, and we have have given enough clarity over our once we build the static UI, and now we know that okay, these are the states that we need to keep in the component. Now our data management logic has to be written, right? So basically we need to know where should our state live, for example. So for every piece of state in the application, we should basically try to avoid so much prop drilling, and we should basically figure out the closest common ancestor parent component in the tree hierarchy of the DOM of the React elements. That where is our state gonna live? So either we can put it directly into the common parent, or we can put it some state into some component above the common parent. But if we don't have any component that we don't know where should we hold the state, then we can create a new component and add it somewhere in the hierarchy, right? So in our application, uh, in our search component, we can basically put the search input text as the state and the value of checkbox as the state. So the search bar component has the state, and the product table uh, needs to filter the product list based on that state. So the common component parent is filterable product table, right? So we will keep this state in the filterable product table component. Okay. So uh, basically the React library provides a useState hook for adding the state to the component. So these are some special functions that let you take basically use the React's implementation for state management. Okay, so uh, basically in our filterable product table, we add two state variables. One is our filter text, and then we have in stock. Okay, so what we do is in our product table, component we pass the products and the filter text and the in stock only. These are the props. Now uh, now if we change the filter text value to fruit, for example, then we'll see that both the search input text and the table update because its props has changed. Okay, so now our application looks something like this. It has filter text and in stock only two attributes, two state that it is managing, and then it renders a search bar and a product table, right? And then we have a product category row, product row, and the product table. So in our product table, we basically match. So basically now we write the logic, we update the logic of our product table component based on this state values, right? And the search bar also. So product category rows remains the same. Product row basically remains the same. But in product table, we basically see that, okay, if our product name matches if a filter text is included in our product name, then we basically show that result, right? Otherwise we just return out of that. And if it is in stock, if we are asking for only in stock products and our product is not in stock, then we also return nothing out of our data, right? Otherwise if our otherwise it's the same, that we product category doesn't match the last category, and whatever rows we have, we push out that product. So basically we do some filtering logic into our product. Okay, so now this is how we and then in our search bar we basically put the input value and the checked value for the checkbox, right? Now uh, now basically there's few things missing. For example, this input value, we have provided a value for this, but we do not provide a on change function for both the inputs, so we need to do that next. So so in the search bar we basically say that this is a filter text value, right? Now our flow will be in the bidirection. In the second, in the from top to down and down to top also our data will flow. So this is what's gonna happen next. That currently our app renders correctly and props and state are flowing down the hierarchy. But as the user changes the input, we need to support the data flow from bottom to top. Okay, so this is a bit more, requires a bit more typing, and this is uh, two-way data binding, right? So uh, it's very simple basically. uh, so basically we have this set filter stack and set in stock only, right? So we will provide these arguments to our search bar component, right? And then based on the event, we'll say on filter text change, change the filter text to the target value, and also for the in stock only we will say target checked value. Okay, so now our application is fully working. Now let's just play with the application. So if we do apple, it basically filters out the apple and the fruit category, right? If we do spinach, it basically filters out the vegetables. And if we do only show products in stock, so it will only show the in stock products, right? If I do pea, then apple, spinach and peas are filtered because it is present, the p word is present in uh, only these product names. So now so now we have understood that how do we manage state and props in React, and how do we build an application in a component hierarchy and a component architecture, right? And how do we think in React. So I hope you like this video, and keep following my channel for more such deep dives into React and other sort of technologies that we use for front end development and back end development. Thanks everyone.